At this point, we'll call the PBA together. It was properly posted on May 15th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of May 10th? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item 4 is to discuss Oklahoma City Fire Department to use Metro Parking Garage for training on Sunday, June 4th.
Move the item.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. 5 is to discuss County Treasurer to use the Event Center at 4205 for its annual resale on June 12th through the 16th.
Move the item.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Item 6. Excuse me. And discuss some possible action regarding the document storage needs of the court clerk. Mr. Warren, do you want to speak?
Commissioners, as you know, I spoke with you about 7 months ago about our needs for storage, and I brought it up pretty much about once a month. We're now at a critical point. We're out of space. We're using the first floor. We'll fill that up. We filled up 600 boxes this week and moved about 300. We create more records each and every day. So we have to act on this. We have to decide what we're going to do. My suggestion, and we've looked over 5 or 6 buildings, and I think we've pretty much agreed that the building up the street is the best bang for the buck. It's closer. It saves money. It will give us a window of about 10 years that we can store records and try to quit creating so many records. We're now copying everything we do and scanning everything we do, but in the past we have not done that. We looked into scanning those records, what that cost would be, and you're looking somewhere $20–25 million, and we can do a lot of storage for $20–25 million. And in the future, there will probably be cheaper ways of doing it that we don't have now. So I think we put that off, but we do, and we cannot put off storage. We almost need to make this decision very quickly. We are out of space. We are looking at moving file cabinets in the hallway in front of our office. We're looking at storing records any place we can. So if we could figure out a way and how we're going to do it. I asked Mr. Freeman to be here today. He identified monies that we could use, and it would, according to Mr. Freeman and myself, it would make more sense to buy the building, and then the $150,000 a year we're paying now on the property on Classen, pay for that building. It would be more profitable to the county to do it that way. There's other ways we could do it, and I'm sure in your wisdom you'll look at this, but we're out of time.
My counsel, I just have a question. Is it legal for our documents to be in the hallway? I'm not trying to shoot down where you're at. I'm just asking because we're in charge of the building and I have to start answering questions that public may have.
Well, in terms of legality, the statutes don't specify locations where records must be stored. Certainly it is the BOCC's obligation to provide storage for records, but they don't speak to where or the how. Well, I don't know. I mean, that would be something that the fire marshal would determine in terms of clearance space, but that's not something I can answer as a matter of law.
Okay.
If I can inject, there is statutes that says how the county clerk has to store the records. We have to have them stored securely. They have to be within the county, and we have to do it as the statute. So you're right, as far as safety, that's not the place to put boxes of records, and the fact that file cabinets would have to be strapped and locked for security under the statutes that I'm under. And we even are out of space for our secure records, the records that cannot be seen by everyone that the judges have sealed. We're running out of space for those records too.
There are floor loading issues as well, and I've given that document to the court clerk. So
we have that, and we understand
as he stacks them, you know, even in this building, he has to do it in a certain way, not to overload the floor.
Okay. Questions?
Oh, yes, I do have a question, and I don't disagree with you. I know you need that, and I'll be so happy when our legislators allow us to electronically store those documents. But you know, we've got a building out there on 36th and Martin Luther King that's being used for the Wildlife Commission, and that maybe I'm not telling you where to go because you know what you need better than I do, but I do know that we do have that facility out there, and there's a lot of room in that building that you may want to look at to see you know, you can safely store some of your documents there. We've owned that building. It was given to us.
And if that would work for us, we'd be glad to use it. The issue that maybe the commissioners aren't aware of is we actually go to these warehouses multiple times, retrieving records every day. There's not a day that we don't have people in large groups going and retrieving as the judges and the attorneys need files. So if the building is usable for our needs, we'd be glad to look at it. But I don't know the square footage of it. But once again, I think the wisdom here would be to look at a building that if we purchased it down the road, once we don't need the space, that we would not have to dispose of it without making a profit. There's also that we have to look at it as a 10-year window where we're going to have all the records in one location where they're secure, they're safe, they're accessible, so that when we make the move, there's more to this than just storage. There's also the move. When we give up this building down here, and be clear on this, we will gain because the rent is going to go up on this building. As Stacy and Keith have mentioned to me, the lease is a yearly lease, and the properties up and down Classing is becoming more valuable. So that building will be going up in rent. We'll also be freeing up the basement, which we could lease out and generate money. But I think that if we look at the logistics of the building down the street, the size of the building, what all it could be used for, not only for us, but for other things that we're going to be needing in the near future, I just think that it makes a lot of sense. I am not against using anything, the travel time, the cost, the expense, but as you move records, once we decide to move them, where we move them to, each time we move them, you can never retrieve that labor, the cost. You yourself said earlier about saving the taxpayers money. So if we create a space that works, and for the next 10 years, 8 to 10 years, it's good, it's going to cost us $300,000 to $500,000 to move all those records over to a new warehouse. It's going to be very expensive. It's going to have to be done in a secure manner. So we don't want to be moving them too many times. We also, every time we stack, like right now, we're stacking boxes improperly. It's because we got no space, so we're stacking them more than too high. So we're crushing boxes, having to restack them, redo them, and it's time consuming. Now we've been very blessed the last few weeks. We have a group of young men from Cheyenne that are very intelligent and very helpful. They know what they're doing, and with our direction, they've been a big help to us. And if we didn't have them, we would be hiring $18 an hour part-time people. So if we could come up with a solution, a building such as the one up the street, and we do this one time, and we get it done, and we do it right, we bring in some new racks, so when we move them, we take them straight to the racks, we bring over the old racks, now this problem won't come up for many, many years. So
Please
consider something.
Please, I noticed in the last session of this meeting, it appeared that what I said might have been misinterpreted, and I certainly don't want to go away today with any misinterpretation of what I say. I think you need to get what you want. It's just that it popped in my mind that there are other places, and I think I said you do what you want to do because you know more about what you do than I do. But I just offered that.
I meant no disrespect to you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Mr. Treasurer, do you want to tell us where we've got money?
For this, I'll come to the microphone.
Okay.
Commissioner, I think there's probably no doubt if we're looking at a purchase, of this magnitude, I think that the only place that we could look to would be your Public Buildings Authority. The Public Buildings Authority does have cash. I have not looked at, do not know, as far as I know there's some long-range plans and all that have to be drawn into that. But when it really comes right down to it, the Public Buildings Authority, and I realize we look at that entity, that trust, an awful lot. But that is the trust that is the only one that would be able to assist in and provide the cash in such a purchase, in my humble opinion.
Okay. You wowed me.
I knew I would.
Is it proper for this authority to be able to send something to the infrastructure committee, or does this not have any jurisdiction to do that?
No, the infrastructure committee is a BOCC committee, Now, that's not to say that this body couldn't create a committee if it wanted to have input from and research done on the issue.
Well, I'm not excited about creating more committees.
No, hard. No, I'm not ready for that.
You want to speak? I think Miles may have one suggestion.
Could this committee, if I can interrupt, please, could this committee task the engineering to start the negotiations possibly to see what we could get the building down? I'm currently asking $4 million, but if this committee could ask Stacy and his group to move forward and to see if we could negotiate a price on the building which would meet, we get it down to 2.7 instead of $4 million, and start moving in that direction.
I think it might help you to remember that the infrastructure committee brought an item to the VOCC recommending that we move forward on a building, and specifically the number one choice was that building down the street, but there was others you could pick from as well. The reason we haven't taken any action is because the funding is the issue. I don't have any money in place to go start negotiating. So now you're in kind of a step to where would we find the money to do what the BOCC has already approved. And I think it's on your agenda today because the PBA is one source, and I just asked Bush about another one.
Miles, did you have something to offer?
Stacy and I previously talked about the Oklahoma Industrial Authority. They've previously purchased properties for us before by releasing bonds. We do a debt service to them to the tune of about $250,000 to $300,000 a year, and we currently spend $150,000 a year. DA also spends money, so we can get to $200,000 to where we're only costing ourselves about $100,000 a year, versus taking it out as one large chunk for $2.7 to $4 million. So it makes sense with people's money to draw this out in a manner that we can afford it, not just taking every bit of it and bankrupting PBA. So I think it's something that Stacy's got a lot of information. Butch probably does as well.
That certainly and I think what we're pointing out there, there's still other possibilities involved in this. What we need to do, I think, is we do need to make a decision. We don't need to study it to death. As with any governmental entity, we have a terrible habit of that at times. We do need to make a decision. We need to solve the problem. And notwithstanding the OIA, notwithstanding that as a possibility, it has some strengths and it has some weaknesses in it. Certainly, I think what you'd be asking for the first thing to do is to see if the OIA would purchase that building or such a building, and then we try to lease it. Not saying that's not a possibility. I guess all I am saying is I do think we need to make a decision and we need to get moving on it.
Well, this, and I agree. But this agenda-based discussion and possible action for approval, regarding the document storage needs and possible funding sources. I don't hear that we have arrived at a funding source, have we?
I believe Butch has addressed it, that there's approximately $4 to $6 million in that fund, and if we took out the 2.7 or up to 4, hopefully we get it less. That money would be making money rather than the 0.25% interest it makes currently. It would actually, that money that you invest in the building would be profitable because we're going to pay out the money. And so rather than us paying interest to someone else, we pay it to ourselves, which just seems more feasible.
Okay, finally, Keith, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Let me share with you the financials that were presented to the budget evaluation team for fiscal 17-18. If you look at the lower right-hand box, you'll see the cash available at that time, and also a projection of where the PBA would stand as far as revenues for the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, this is as of 2016. Does that mean of 2017?
This is 2017, 2018 projected.
But it says balances of March 6, 2016. Is that a typo?
That is.
Okay.
That is. Keep in mind also that fund has been used to front other needs, other projects as they come up, large dollar requirements for emergencies. It would be nice if we could find some alternative way to finance this purchase, whether or not an owner carry, any kind of a mechanism that could be used. I'm unaware of what that might be.
Sheriff's.
I apologize, visiting with council reminded me, and I think that's a very, well, Mr. Council, if the PBA were to buy this, if they were to buy this building, I think then that they would fully expect, the PBA would fully expect that if the county's going to use it, the county will be paying some type of rent, some type of, not necessarily lease, but some type of rent. For example, right now, we've got dollars out of general fund that goes to lease a building where we're already storing. Just as the PBA owns the parking garages, the county pays in accordance with our bond agreements on those. You know, the county pays, we pay out of our general funds to lease that. So I think that we probably would have to anticipate certainly that there would be some type of a lease agreement between the county, i.e. out of the general fund, into the PBA if they were the owner of that building. Did I state that correct?
And I believe that's what we said in the very beginning, take the $150 that we're paying now and apply that to the rent, and that makes everything functional and work.
I have here the history of what we've paid for storage since we since we leased that property on 911 Southwest 4th.
And that is the facility he's talking about? Okay.
Monthly and annual, you'll see included the bond with the investors' capital building square footage. I did receive an email from our landlord's representative who suggested he would hold the lease rate at its current rate for this year and the next year, but we would expect an increase in the following year.
Okay. You ready for me to do something?
I'm in favor of buying as opposed to leasing. I think it always makes more sense if in the long term you're not paying out any extra than you have to. But I understand too what they're saying about this is gonna break us if we go up to the $4 million. That would just leave us $405,000 left. What if we gave you authorization up to an amount less than that and you went and see if you could make it happen for that?
If council will give me that authority, or whoever they're gonna have do it, I'd be glad to do it, and I am a licensed realtor, and I'd be glad to do it. But, if council will give me the authority to go talk to them, at one time I was told not to, so I just wanna make sure I'm not crossing the line here I'm not supposed to cross. I really believe that we'd probably buy it for about 2.7 is what I think we could buy it for, definitely under $3 million.
Just a quick question, maybe for Aaron. Would it be, this is probably an opinion, but do you think if we're going to do an up to amount that maybe putting on an executive session item for next week might be a little more appropriate since we're talking about real estate negotiations?
I've always thought we had to announce it publicly.
I'm trying to do this from memory. There is a provision to discuss the appraisal of real estate in executive session, but I can't recall if it includes the word purchase. it's dangerous to try and do it from memory if you haven't had a
absolutely.
whole lot of coffee.
I believe when this issue came up with regards to discussing properties around the jail, that was part of the problem, is because we give away our secrets by being an
Yeah,
open
you don't wanna,
body.
you don't wanna publicly voice your negotiation. That should not be given away. I would be hesitant, however, just to, negotiate for real property without identifying a source of funding.
Well, do you not believe it's satisfactory to say that, PBA has a certain amount in the accounts as the source? Or do you don't think this agenda item speaks specifically enough for that?
Commissioner, I don't have a copy of the agenda to answer that question,
go.
but,
We had the treasurer.
I read this to really be focusing on funding sources, Commissioner, rather than authorizing or delegating someone to go forth and negotiate. For the county to purchase property, my recommendation is first and foremost that the county exercises due diligence. Careful what it's getting, research all sorts of things, including condition of property, which would be discoverable as you go ask for a visit on the inside, as well as any potential issues, whether it be environmental or otherwise, as well as making sure that you're not overpaying for the property. And a lot of times the county purchases an appraisal before it ventures forth and makes offers. That's my first and foremost recommendation. I would suggest at this point that you focus on your funding sources, look at PBA to see if PBA is a viable source of funding, and whether or not it would be incumbent on the county, if the PBA fronts a certain dollar amount, that the general fund would have to reimburse PBA on an annual basis for rental payments, such as you're seeing out at the Lincoln property, your parking garage, et cetera, et cetera. That would be my first recommendation. I think that Butch would have a lot of that information on hand. With regard to whether or not rent will be paid, it's just probably a matter of looking at the trust indenture agreement for PBA. Right. We've got that.
So does it go,
You probably want to defer it, Commissioners, so you have a firm idea of whether or not PBA can handle this transaction. And then, if it can, I don't know what's been done already, whether or not a county employee has actually inspected the premises.
Yeah, this particular facility's been visited a couple of times.
Okay.
We know the asking price is $4 million. We know the assessor holds its value at 2.7.
Well,
There's no appraisal yet.
okay. So we don't want to negotiate at this point, and we don't want to negotiate, I don't think, publicly. Did you?
Yes, under Title 25, Section 307, it allows executive sessions for the purpose of, quote, discussing the purchase or appraisal of real property.
Okay, so if you can identify a source of funds, because I think you're going to put yourself in a funny posture if you get a reputation for going out and negotiating property and then backing off. Much like, you could get in putting things out for bid and then think, oh, never mind. Then you could proceed to go into executive session to discuss how you want to negotiate that purchase, if that's the property you want.
does the PBA have to vote that we're interested in this specific property?
Not at this time.
Okay.
I think you now have enough information from staff to know what your dollar range is and how many dollars you need to potentially find to make a purchase.
So is your suggestion still that we defer this until?
I think that you need to vet out your source of funding.
Okay. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I move we defer this at least for a week in order to vet out the source of funding for this particular building.
Do we need to defer, I just have a question, should we defer it, or do we need to redraft the item to be more specific?
That's your option. It's always safer to give you, the license to redraft. So if you want to strike it for a week, that's fine. You can bring it back with different language next week and give you more leeway.
I'm fine. I'm just acting on your recommendation.
I don't wanna hang him up another
I
week
may have
because
given
we
you
don't
bad
have a
advice.
specifically worded enough agenda item. So does it move to strike?
Yes.
Okay, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I think we do appreciate your need, though.
Thank you.
We're working on it. Now we need to share, 'cause I gave mine away. What's
Oh, this one. Oh, the Metro parking contract.
We have one parking space.
Mhm. Move we approve the parking space on number 7.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now what?
Now, we're down to a lease agreement between the Public Buildings Authority and others for lease space in the ICB. I move we approve that.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And then receive the report of fees for April.
Move it.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Items 10 through 14 appear to be all cash fund appropriations.
Move item 10 through 14.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
15 is to approve the claims.
Move the claim.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any citizens to be heard again? Still? None? Any new business? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.